Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Unraveling the Knots. I'm especially excited about today's episode because we have someone doing something truly unique. Being a naturalista is already special, but having someone who helps women, especially those like me who cover their hair, navigate their journey, that's extra special. This episode is for every woman, whether you cover or not. We are diving into women's hair health, breaking down key insights, and sharing practical tips you can take with you. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm Ganiat Salami, a beautypreneur and passionate solutions provider for all things natural hair. And today, I'm joined by someone who shares that same passion. Ladies, we have a special guest on the show, Rahma, aka the 4C Hijabi. Salam alaikum, Rahma.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was an amazing intro, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling great. Bit under the weather. We have a bit of a flu going around, but alhamdulillah, all good.
Allah make it easy. So, can you further introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do?
Right. So I am a teacher by day, full-time secondary school maths teacher by day. And when I'm not teaching maths, I am, well, I can now say it because I've just got my certification. I'm a hair practitioner.
Woo!
And
congratulations.
Yeah. But one of the reasons I've done this is I've always had not always actually. I had a very distant relationship with hair up until my teenage years. I had a very distant relationship with hair. I was so detached that I didn't even know what my hair texture was. I was detached from the process. I was detached from everything. Maybe it was a trauma. Maybe it was my lack of care. Maybe it's just I wanted to go out and play and not sit for hours and do my hair. For whatever reason, I just did not engage. And my mum always took care of my hair, or there was one auntie who would do my hair for me. And then when I moved to England, I'm Nigerian, born in Nigeria. Then I lived in Kuwait until I was about 14. And my family also moved to England. But initially it was just me, my dad and my brothers. And so I was the only girl in the house, meaning that there was no one there to take care of my hair. And that is when I actually had to sit down and deal with it. And boy, there were so many difficulties that I went through. So I kind of, then I'm an inquisitive person and I hate not knowing about something that I feel like should be, everybody does their hair. I should know what to do. I should know how to take care of it. Where's the information? Wasn't there. Lots of broken combs, lots of tears, lots of trips to the library, reserving books, waiting for books, reading about books, stumbling upon the natural hair world. And that's when a lot of things changed. Not only was I faced with, obviously, the practicality of learning how to manage my hair, but also what shocked me even more than that, I was aware of my own ignorance because I knew my level of detachment. But what shocked me more than that was everyone's opinion on my hair, or whether or not I covered it, and what I did with it when it was covered and what I did with it when it was uncovered. That shocked me a lot more. From within the house, when I decided to go natural, because I've been relaxed as far back as I could remember, and, family members having their opinion on my natural hair, all the way through to being in a new country where you are a minority, not just as a Black woman, but also a covering Muslim woman. And people kind of saying, oh, you must cover your hair because it's so beautiful. And beautiful, when they describe it, was, oh, long, very, very, your hair must be all the way to your knees and it must be straight. And I thought, well, where does that come from? So there was already an underlying expectation of what my hair should look like under hijab. There were also occurrences where I took my hijab off in all girls gatherings, and just a look of shock on the faces of some of the girls just let me know that, oh, okay, people have very strong emotions and reactions to hair. If I was to say one of the stories, it was like a all Muslim bridal party, and I was about 15, 16 at this time, I think. And my hair was kind of like transitioning, so it was kind of half afro, half straight, but it was kind of in a bun. And everyone was like, oh my God, let's take our hijabs off. And they were like, take your hijab off, take your hijab off. And I took mine off. And one of the girls, like, I just remember it going dead quiet. And one of the girls was like, put it back on.
Oh my gosh. Somebody actually said that to you?
Yeah. But do you know what? When I was younger, I know now that that's very offensive.
Yeah.
But back then I was just like, why did she say that? I don't know. I kind of always default to why. I just could not understand why people were having such strong reactions. And this was a sitting of non-Black women, by the way. So obviously their awareness and their level of ignorance was far beyond mine. So I was completely perplexed. To me, when I looked around me, people did so many different things with their hair. People colored it, people cut it, people braided it, people put it. There were so many things that people did with their hair. I was quite shocked that people were having that reaction to mine. I thought, I've seen some weird stuff that some people do and no one complains. Why am I a target all of a sudden? And then going into university, I stumbled on a natural hair scene on YouTube. I learned so much. I tried everything I saw, from the inversion method to the cayenne pepper, everything, you name it. Trying to grow my hair, get it thicker. And then I went to university as well, and I studied colonialism and post-colonialism within part of my English degree. And it opened my eyes to so much as to why people had some of the reactions that they did. And then also, as I was learning about hair on YouTube, I just felt like I still didn't have a firm grounding. There was just so many trends and so many stuff coming at me. I just did not have firm grounding, and I'd grown my hair to a certain point, but then whenever I'd get stuck or something wasn't going right, I didn't know how to troubleshoot. I didn't know why. I didn't know where it was coming from. So I know I needed more. And then I stumbled upon hair coaches during COVID. And it was mostly because I was, at the time I didn't know, but I was suffering from telogen effluvium, which is stress-related hair loss. A lot of teachers went through that during COVID. And so nothing I was doing from YouTube was helping. And I found Tola Okogwu, Anita actually, Anita first. I attended one of her webinars and I didn't like it. Everything she said was against what I learned on YouTube. But it made sense, which is the difficult part. And I kept going back to my notes.
That is the truth for a lot of people with natural hair. We've learned certain notions of how we should take care of our hair. And once we hear the truth, we initially don't react appropriately to it.
100%. No, we don't. And I was just like, who's this woman? Who does she think she is? What's she telling me? Wash my hair once a week. She's mad. Blah, 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 blah. But she was not only, what I had to grapple with was, I couldn't even use the excuse of, oh, she's of a different race or whatever. She was Nigerian, not just Nigerian, she was Yoruba. And she had pictures to actually detail her growth with her hair. So it wasn't like she was just born with long hair. So I really couldn't even grapple or pull at any of those excuses. So that's kind of why I had to have that internal conflict. I tabled it, kept going back to it. Then I got another coach because I couldn't book Anita again. I call her the Beyonce of the hair world. Once any of her bookings come out, they're gone in like minutes.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah. Where's she based?
She's UK's first hair coach. It's Anita Agidi. So she's based in London, W6. She has a hair loss. She at the time, she just had like a little at-home studio, but now she's opened up a hair loss center. So they tackle hair loss issues. They take care of hair and so much more.
Much needed.
She's absolutely brilliant. But then I had Tola Okogwu, who is also a writer, who's now a writer of hair books, Daddy Do My Hair, and so many other books. So she kind of had a more softer approach, which I think I was more receptive to at the time. And it was just to get me used to the importance of a routine. She kind of let me get away with washing my hair. And she was like, try and do it at least once every 2 weeks or once a month and that kind of thing. So it eased me in. And then I still needed more. So that was more like just coaching for a little bit. I needed more. I needed a firm foundation. And then I took a 6-month hair course with Ori Lifestyle. And that was absolutely transformative because it challenged us to it wasn't just about learning about our hair. We'd have a session once a month and then you apply whatever your learning was for the whole month. And we had like a WhatsApp group where you get support. So let's say month 1 is just shampooing and conditioning and wash day. Then month 2 would be moisturizing, heat, swimming. so on and so forth. So by the end of the 6 months, the goal was to be the expert in your own hair.
So this is like a great community to help encourage people to
Yeah.
actually nurture and take care of their hair better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was amazing. She also had some really knowledgeable guests on there, which was so good for us as well. So that was very, very transformative, and it gave me that grounding that I actually needed. And I didn't feel like anytime I'd come online, I'd be easily swayed and confused. So that was great. And then Anita had a series of webinars, and I attended those and lots more trichologists webinars, so on and so forth. And in the midst of all of that, I thought, okay, right, I know about my hair now. I know what it needs, blah, blah, blah. I'm a Muslim woman. There's certain things I can't do. And not only that, I started to think about things like marriage and ghusl frequency and how that might change. And
what is ghusl for people that are not Muslims?
So ghusl is basically one of the religious obligations of both Muslim men and women, especially after spouses have been intimate with each other. Or it could be that after a woman's period, and it involves, this is a key bit, throwing at least 3 handfuls of water on your scalp and rubbing your scalp. So if you're a married woman who's intimate with her partner a lot, then you will both be doing ghusl at a higher frequency. So that means the contact time with water is far more. So I started to think about things like that, like how will all of this change? How will all this get affected? And I was not finding anybody who was talking about it. So I decided to start doing my own research, from speaking to students of knowledge, taking extra courses, experimenting on myself, my sisters, my friends, constantly trying to find a solution. And while I was doing that during lockdown, I met Muna, who is now a co-founder of Curls, Paws and Sisters. We went from being very much a podcast like this during lockdown to now holding in-person events for Black and Muslim women. We are the world's first Black and Muslim hair care event curators, if you will.
And you're based in the UK.
Based in the UK, but
you
have virtual events.
Whoa. You UK people.
Listen, we don't waste time in London. We don't waste time in London.
You were saying.
We hold online events as well. There'll be a virtual event this year. And really, it's just to be a hub for Black and Muslim women to have everything they need in one place. So I lead a talk on ghusl and hair care, or whatever the main need is. Muna does protective styling. And then we also invite guests. We recognize the importance of having representation. And so we invite guests to talk about their hair journeys. Neither of us are mothers. So in a mother's experience with hair care with her children is going to be very different to, let's say, a student who's very busy, or someone who's young that's often trying to, get on with the trends. And so women, we are all at different stages of our lifestyle, and our lifestyle kind of affects how we take care of our hair. So you get that. We also invite specialists, from hair loss specialists. We've had Anita there, who will kind of be able to help tease out some of those more complex questions. At our events, we've had scalp analysis happening, and it's just because it's a safe space and it's only hijabis there. And so women feel free to just be themselves. And then also, most importantly, giving back to the community and hosting Black-owned businesses, and especially Black Muslim-owned women businesses there. So literally your combs, your products, your skincare, everything is there. And you know that you are not only helping yourself and learning more yourself, you're also feeding back into your community. So yeah, that is literally what happens at a Curls, Paws and Sisters event, both virtual and in person. And so yeah, that is, I know it's a very, very long-winded way to answer the question, but that is what I do.
And I also wanted to ask you, so there's a common myth. If you cover your hair, you don't need to care for it as much.
Oh.
How do you respond to that?
Oh, goodness gracious. If only you knew. And I have data to back this up. So in 2003, before our first event, I wanted to collect data because I heard a story about a Muslim sister, which I never thought never crossed my mind. And I realized that our experiences are vastly different. And so before curating this event, I needed to get as many Muslim women opinion on hair care as possible so we can cater to them the best. So I opened up a survey, shared it on TikTok and Instagram, and within 3 days, I had 1,000 responses. We are currently on 2,700 plus responses from Black and Muslim women. A recurring theme, not with all women, but with a significant percentage of them, was a lot of them said that they felt like they could neglect their hair more under hijab, but it was more so because they didn't know how to take care of it. There was a high level of anxiousness when it came to their hair because of some of those underlying standards that I spoke about. Some people might think, oh, just because you wear hijab, it doesn't matter. But when you take it off, you feel that pressure. But when you take it off, because you are taking it off now, your hair must be on point. Otherwise, what are you covering?
Yes. Yes.
And I find that hijabis are a lot more concerned about their hair, especially those because part of the data, one of the questions was, would you feel comfortable to show your hair to your spouse? And there was an interesting thing that I saw with the data. Women who were living in the West, not from the West or raised, but living in the West, versus women who were not living in the West. So probably Muslim majority countries or African or Black majority countries. There was a difference. So a lot of those living in the West were very anxious about it.
Wow.
And a lot of those who were not living in the West or Muslim majority countries were not.
Was there a reason why you saw that discrepancy? Did they share?
Oh, there's a bunch of reasons. I think it ranged from society's expectations. My brother married his wife here. His wife was born and raised in England. And I remember when I was reading through the survey, my brother and his wife were around, and I called my brother, and his wife was sat next to me. I called him, and I was like, listen, I need to get your opinion. And I said to him, I asked his wife first, I said, did you feel apprehensive about showing my brother your hair when you got married? And she said, yes. And I asked my brother, like, what were your expectations? He was like, well, all the women in my family are natural, so I wasn't bothered. And that's when it clicked for me. That's what he's seen. We talk about how beauty standards affect women, but sometimes we don't really realize how that affects men as well, especially within the home and what they see with their mothers, what they see with their sisters. If you live in the West, and this actually came up in my coaching course as well, where our coach, Titi, she was like, as a mother, and I know some women do wear wigs, you cannot teach your child to love their hair if you cannot display it as well. So if you're constantly wearing wigs, constantly have your hair covered around the house, constantly not appreciating your hair, like actively, your child is going to see that as a standard. You said if you are going to an event and your default is not your natural hair most of the time, if not for a lot of people actually is all the time, then it sends a message, it sends a subliminal message. You can say as much as you want, your hair is beautiful, but every time you go to an important event, you are not wearing your hair, that sends a subliminal message that this is the standard, this is what it's expected, not just to your daughters, but also inadvertently to yourself. So that then starts to become their expectation of what it should be. And that is much more prevalent in the West. The second reason is also access. In places like Nigeria, which is where a lot of the non-Western data came from. So major countries were UK, US, Nigeria, Canada, some places in the Netherlands, which is really interesting. But for example, in places like Nigeria, where access to hair care is very easy. So I could literally wake up in the morning and be like, I want someone to do my hair. I will have someone there. It will be affordable, and I will get my hair done. That will not even be a question or a problem. That is not as easy in the West with the current, costs of living and so much. So there's a lot that goes into it, from access to hair care and hairstyling really being the signifier of beauty for a lot of women in the West. And I'm not going to lie, the standard and signifiers for beauty for women in the West are there's a lot more boxes to tick. From your edges having to be absolutely slayed to the style having to be absolutely a certain way, and it has to be, there are so many, I'm going to call them standards that you have to meet, that we create ourselves. Exactly. We create part of those standards ourselves. And so it's so much more harder to meet those standards. And what I find is that sometimes women would feel like hair care is so difficult because they are trying to bend their hair to something that is extreme different. to what it actually is. And so the process to get your hair from one form to an extremely different form is going to be tiring.
Yep.
And because it's tiring, then you get the other group of women that just give up. And it's like, I'm just going to get my hair short, wear my hair short, or because short hair is not acceptable, or just put it in extensions, put it away and not deal with it. Because it just meeting those standards, it can actually be very overwhelming. That's actually, I would say that's half the battle. I say the easiest part is actually applying the practical knowledge. The hardest part is dealing with the underlying beauty standards that already exist.
So it's those standards that are like brewing anxiety for a lot of women.
Yep. And then also because they fed into a lot of beauty standards that actually don't serve hair growth, because and I said this on a podcast once, and some people almost were like, what are you on about? Length was not a signifier for beauty for a lot of African countries or tribes with tight coils. Go on.
Why do you think so?
Well, it's to do with when you look at, there are some exceptions because, you know, as Africans, we move around quite a lot. We were borderless until the colonizers came. That's how I like to place it. We didn't have strict borders, so we intermingled. So you will have, for example, like the women of Chad who use shibi. But even then, I'll come back to that. Even then, there are some interesting stuff. But intricacy of styling was really the signifier of beauty amongst us. And you can see that with the tools in which we use for hair care. So when you look at any tribe, any country, any nation, any group of people and their beauty practices, you will find the tools that they use to suit those beauty practices. And if, for example, if I take the Yoruba tribe or just Nigerians in general, you have things like ilarun, like a cutting comb, to make neat, straight lines, to be able to create those intricate styling. You have the headdresses, the headwear, all of that stuff. None of them indicated length. Whereas if you go to a country like India, for example, so much work has been done into mixing herbs and using herbs to be able to retain length. You have Ayurveda, which in itself is actually a religious practice, but within it, you actually have embedded hair care practices to help retain length. So if you actually look at the history and the archaeological artifacts and everything, you will find that in a lot of West African countries, and I remember speaking to my Jamaican friend, Paige, and she also talked about in Jamaica, it really was the intricacy of the styling, the color of your hair and the hair being bright colors. Even in America, I would say things like finger waves, which are very, very intricate. And the way African Americans style their hair, there was a structure to the way they used to do their afro. And there's already pockets of it that you can see. So when you actually observe it, length was not the main signifier of beauty. And I also think that with a texture like this coming from a hot country, very, very, very hot country, mind you, and our hair already, Allahumma barak, Allah has created it in a way in which it's got a wider surface area, so it will reduce the amount of heat that's on your head, and also it grows up instead of down. So it's not trapping heat and making you feel very hot. And so it actually makes sense. Then in a lot, not all, I'm going to specify, not all, but in a lot of very hot countries, especially people with tighter coils, it made sense that our styles went upwards rather than downwards. So I think when you look, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, no, I think that's actually very interesting because, and it makes sense when we look, at least for me, when I look at pictures of people in different African countries way back in the day, some tribes you had people with longer hair. Other tribes, it was the intricate design, the decoration. I guess my question is, do you feel like for societies where the expectation wasn't long hair, did it affect how a lot of women of African descent feel like their hair was not necessarily supposed to grow long, so they didn't necessarily pursue that as an objective?
Exactly. I just remember the point I was trying to make. They didn't pursue that as an objective because a lot of those styles, they can actually be quite damaging to the edges. And that was actually bringing me to the point I was trying to make, which is we haven't reached a point where we reconcile our cultural practices with our desire for length. There is an underlying unspoken untruth that all African cultures, our old practices was what kept our hair long and strong. And I say it's an untruth because I remember being on Clubhouse and we were running a room, and there was an American lady who was like, oh, she went to Ghana. She was like, obviously the West has warped a lot of the truth about us as Africans. That's without a doubt.
Yes.
And so she was of the opinion, because beauty, for the primary signifier for beauty within America at the moment with hair care is length and thickness, especially amongst us as Africans or amongst African Americans. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Oh, yes. I completely agree.
So therefore, she surmised that obviously we were happier in our old cultures, and so the secrets for length and beauty for African hair will be in Africa. That was her surmisation, because she felt like the West had warped so much, so she's not going to get the truth from here. When she decided to go to Ghana, and she was like, she's probably going to find the oils that they use and everything they use to grow their hair. Lo and behold, she went to Ghana, and instead they were asking her how she grew her hair to the length that it was.
Oh, wow.
And initially she was saying, oh, they've been so corrupted by colonization, they're all relaxing their hair. And a few of us had to stop her and say, no, it wasn't the signifier of beauty for us. It just wasn't. And so, sorry to disappoint, but and this is where I really think a lot of women in the natural hair scene need to come to terms with certain things. I'm not saying our hair cannot grow. By the way, we have not even began, in my opinion, to touch the surface of the potential of hair growth that we can have.
Yes.
So many women have not. This is completely my opinion. It's only backed by my experience and not backed by any science whatsoever. But I feel like unless you have a genetic deficiency or a hair loss issue, I feel like most Black women can grow their hair at the very least to bra strap.
Yes.
Can retain that length. And I don't think that'll be very difficult if you apply things properly. And that's most. And I would even argue that at least 60. This is my opinion. It's not backed by anything. But I would argue 60% can at least get waist length. That's my opinion, because I really just don't think that we've scratched the surface. Because a lot of I was trying to say what we're struggling to reconcile is those cultural practices that we have in the past. We want to believe that they are the things that are beautiful, but because beauty is length, so we then surmise, therefore those old cultural practices will give us length. Things like putting shea butter in our hair, and a lot of people not understanding the chemical composition of shea butter. And if you live in a cold country, that's actually going to be detrimental. We didn't put shea butter on our scalp, or oiling our scalp. That's another one. We didn't oil our scalp. I'll speak for Nigeria. We didn't oil our scalp with shea butter because we wanted the hair to grow. We oiled it so it could shine. So the rows that we neatly parted could shine better. That was our standard of beauty. It was the intricacy within the styling. That's why we did it. The hair would have been more malleable to be able to manage, especially in a hot country or in a humid country. It would have been more malleable and easy to manage, especially if you put an oil in it. But really, the main reason we oiled our scalp was to get shine. So when I say things like, oh, wearing your hair in an afro in West Africa is not a standard of beauty. Just wearing your hair loose is seen, not because the afro is bad, because the signifier for beauty is the hair had to be done in an intricate style that took hours. And to a lot of people, a simple afro doesn't look like it's taken hours. It doesn't mean I hate afros. I love them. I love our hair texture. It doesn't mean that Africans hate their hair textures. That's just the fact of what it is. It's a beauty standard that exists there, which is changing now due to colonization. But it's just a fact. So I think
that's the importance of understanding the cultural context. It's not that Afro is bad. It's just that when people, for example, in certain tribes in Nigeria do their hair, their priority was not leaving their hair in an afro. They were thinking design.
Exactly. And that is how they showed their hair, the love of their hair, by designing it, by taking the time, taking the effort. We had names for styles, like there were styles called clap your hands, face your husband, face away from your husband. There were styles that were just denoted for queens. Like, we love our hair so much. Yes. It's just we loved it differently.
You have the shukus, right? And you already translated English, we have Evelyn King. That's not like that was named after someone. You have Patel. You have what's it called?
Exactly.
A whole bunch of hairstyles that are just interesting, named interestingly. But I was going to ask you, so You mentioned shea butter, and I'm glad you brought up shea butter because I love shea butter. I feel like shea butter is hair gold. But I would love for you to correct some of our misconceptions about shea butter. Is shea butter good for your hair strands, or is it detrimental to your hair strands?
So there are some factors to consider, weather being the first one. I find that in summer weathers, because shea butter kind of melts in heat, it can be great as a sealant. So when you look at the carbon chain composition of shea butter, and I'm actually just going to look it up properly so I can kind of read it out to you guys and make sure I get my facts straight. It's mostly, if I look at the percentages, so I can kind of explain a little bit more, because there are some oils that are heavier in sealant properties, and some oils that are heavier in penetrative properties. All oils are not created the same. Yes. So because shea butter has more of oleic acid, which is more on the sealant, so the fatty acid composition, that's what I was looking for. It's mostly oleic acid, like 34.5%, which is C18, and 34.5 of stearic acid. So it's mostly thicker the best way to describe it is it's mostly made of thick component. And so it's better at coating. So it can be a protective layer for the hair. When we talk about hair growth and length retention, they are not the same thing. Yeah. Hair growth happens underneath the skin. It is when the blood supplies it, and then that will grow your hair.
Please say it louder for the people that did not hear.
Hair growth happens underneath the skin. So your hair grows from inside and then it comes out. So that is the key thing people need to understand. Whereas length retention is keeping that length. So as soon as your hair grows out of your head, it cannot regenerate. That's why when you cut it, you don't feel anything. It doesn't have any nerve endings. Whereas if you cut your skin, it will heal itself up. Whereas your hair does not do that once it comes out of your head. Therefore, you need to retain it. The best way to describe it, and this is how it was described to me by Anita, she said, the hair that's growing out of your hair now, let's say you want waist length hair, that hair that's growing out right now, today, needs to last you about 3 to 5 years for you to see waist length. So that's retention. Yes. Can you retain that hair that's growing on your head for 3 to 5 years? And so shea butter is something that can coat the hair and help with retention. Do not, and I repeat, do not put it on your scalp. Your scalp it's like skin, it's self-regulating. You don't want to be putting any oils on your scalp unless you're doing a hot oil treatment that you'll wash out in 24 hours. And you got to know your oils before you do that.
So you said shea butter should not be used on your scalp. No. We do have people that use oils on their scalp. Which oils would you recommend you can use on your scalp? And I can say this about myself. I use jojoba oil because my scalp is dry. And when in the past I tried to stay away from using oils, it was horrible. So I use jojoba oil. Is that something that you recommend people do, or are there other options when it comes to oils that are safe for your scalp?
So when you talk about scalp dryness, I'm going to answer your question with another question. Do you know why your scalp was dry?
Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
So this is actually where we should have started.
Okay.
That's where I would start. If someone asked me a question is why? Because what I tend to find is the oils cover the symptoms and don't actually deal with the root cause.
Okay.
And so the oil makes the hair glisten, which makes it look like it's moisturized, but the symptoms still persist.
So what would you say could be a symptom of dry scalp? Because when it comes to my diet, I eat very well. I eat a lot of seafood. I eat a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of proteins. I eat a lot of like omega-3 fatty acid. Food that contain omega-3 fatty acid. What could be causing my scalp to feel dry?
All right, first question. Is your skin very, very dry? Do you suffer like eczema or anything like that?
No.
Okay, so then that should beg the question. Your skin is not dry. but your scalp feels dry. So something's off there. So that's kind of where you'd first need to start investigating. Some of the main reasons I have found, and I'm not saying this is necessarily your case, because it's on a case-by-case basis, a lot of people, the frequency of actually shampooing their hair, they might view it as dry scalp, but actually because of the skin cell turnover, so your skin has already turned over another layer of skin. So that's why you're getting the flakiness, because really the most, for all hair textures, and don't come for me, because the first time I heard this, I wanted to come for my coach. I was like, are you mad? Really, we should be shampooing our hair every 7 days.
Which I do, by the way.
Fantastic. Now, the other question I'd ask now, if that's what you're doing, is what you're using.
So I use, I use a Adara shampoo bar, which is very mild on my scalp. But this was happening before I was using like the Adara shampoo bar.
What were you using prior?
Prior, I think I was using Shea Moisture. I don't remember actual shampoo, but I'd been using it for years, you know.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm getting a little bit of a clearer picture there. I'm not hearing shampoos that have clarifying ingredients in them.
I do use shampoos that have clarifying ingredients, but I do them like maybe once every like quarter, because my hair was getting very dried when I used them frequently. My hair was not growing.
Okay. That's common. So I would say always the primary part for your shampoo is your scalp. And I would always say, especially for my tight coil girlies, do not skim when it comes to a good conditioner for your hair. A good conditioner is going to be the base. After you've done, let's say, a very deep clarifying treatment, a good conditioner will get you back to where your hair, back to where it needs to be. But your scalp needs thorough cleansing. My hair coach once said the scalp is the dirtiest place on the hair in your body because it's the least washed area in your body. And that flaking, you will tend to find that there is actually, it could be dry scalp, it could be. But the only reason I'm suspicious about that with you is it's not necessarily generally how the rest of your skin is. So really, I would be going to a derm and really identifying what that issue is. And one of the reasons I also say avoid oiling your scalp, if you think you have a condition, a scalp condition, is there are conditions that are exacerbated with putting oils on. So if somebody had dandruff, for example, and people can't usually tell the difference between dandruff, psoriasis, dry scalp. It's very hard to tell the difference unless you have someone examine it for you. But things like dandruff, if somebody did have dandruff, feeding your hair with oil is actually feeding the yeast, the Malassezia yeast that causes dandruff. So you think you're taking care of the problem because it looks better, but really you're kind of feeding the bacteria, even the yeast even more.
Okay.
And there's just a whole host of things like sweat getting trapped on your hair, and there are some there's some parts of sweat that actually, if it's left in your hair for too long, it can actually cause irritation. And then you have a layer of oil on top of it, and that just it makes things worse. I used to think I had dry scalp as well, but I noticed that my hair would only start to flake like on day 4 or 5, which is actually okay because that's an indication I need to cleanse my scalp.
Yeah. So I guess the thing is this, when it comes to the scalp, what I'm hearing is that we should not use oils at all.
Not unless you're doing a hot oil treatment. No.
Not unless you're doing a hot oil treatment. Okay, that's great to hear. And then why shouldn't we use oils on our scalp? So
unless, I always say, sorry, there's 2 situations. Unless you're doing a hot oil treatment or unless you've been medically given something to use.
Okay.
The first thing I'm going to talk about structure of the scalp. I want to start with oils first. All oils are not created equally. A small change in its chemical composition changes the properties of the oil. In some places, change in weather, as we already mentioned with shea butter, also coconut oil, changes the way it interacts with your hair. So you really got to know what you're doing with the oil before you use it. And most people don't. Especially if we're talking about essential oils, the whole rosemary oil trend. If we are going to put pure rosemary oil on top of our scalp, it is extremely potent and can be irritating. So that's just oils to the side. When it comes to our skin, our skin is kind of self-regulating. And I'm talking about the scalp here. It produces sebum. which in itself should be able to keep your scalp calm, moisturize everything. If you are now adding oils on top of that, it could be clogging your pores when you're sweating. There's some oils that can be a little bit more sticky, like gels. And so, I don't know if you guys notice, anytime we leave our braids in for too long, there's just all that gunk right at the root.
Yes.
So that is skin cells, that is sweat, that is dirt, dust, or whatever from your clothing, everything trapped in there. So I used to think, I'm supposed to, culturally, this is what I mean, like reconciling our cultural needs, our previous old traditional needs with what our needs are today. It's difficult because I'm like, that's what we do. We oil our scalp. That's what we do. And I stopped oiling my scalp. Believe it or not, I have not oiled my scalp in years. My hair is longer than it's ever been. But at first it felt weird. And I would notice the flaking once a week, like on day 5 or so. But I know now that just means I need to wash my hair. I just need to wash my scalp. I just need to cleanse my scalp. Okay. That's it. Think about it. If you don't wash the skin on your hand, like just say, leave a patch of skin unwashed for a week, you will start to see flakes probably in day 3. So it's just an indication that if you're cleansing your scalp at that frequency, or even for some people twice a week, and I always say cleansing the scalp, not hair, because your hair it'll be slightly different. If you're cleansing the scalp once a week or even twice a week and you're still getting those flakes, then that's a different story. There are people with conditions like psoriasis, which is an overproduction of skin cells, and so their skin cell turnover is so much more faster. Then that's a problem that needs to be tackled in a different way. It shouldn't be tackled with oils. If you're somebody with dandruff, you're doing that consistently and you're still seeing those flakes, then we know, okay, you probably have another condition. How do we treat this condition? But oiling the scalp, I tend to find for a lot of people just masks the problem.
I have another question. So oils aren't necessarily ideal for the hair. How about serums?
What's in a serum?
Like water-based serums.
What's in the water-based serum?
If they have extracts, water-based ingredients, and maybe a little bit of oil, are those better options for the scalp?
You would have to speak to the formulator and you would have to ask them what evidence they have to support the claim they're making about their serum. Okay. I always say, even though I'm giving these, it's like products are like making jollof rice. I make it one way, my Ghanaian sister would make it one way, you might make it a different way. We might all use the same ingredients, but the amount that we use, the way that we use them will affect the taste, the texture, and all of that stuff, or the base or the type of rice that we use. I'm using long grain basmati rice. Someone else might use easy cook rice. And so it is hard to just say yes, yes, and no, 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 especially if you just read the ingredients at the back. Formulation is key. And no one except the formulator and the person who's tested it will really know the full effect of it.
Pre-trauma. I think that is so crucial. It's easy to just hear claims from different products, but then you're not necessarily sure how exactly they're able to help you achieve the different claims the brand says that your hair would see, like or you would see in your hair. So that's very, very, very helpful advice for our listeners. I was also going to ask you, what's the biggest mistake hijabis make when it comes to hair care?
Number 1, you're wearing buns all day. Tight buns. Buns aren't the problem, but tight buns are the problem. And this isn't the thing that, if you're somebody who wants to prioritize length, you have to just keep in mind what I've said. The hair that's growing out today needs to last you 3 to 5 years. If you are consistently being rough with it, it's not going to last very long. It will wither and die before you even reach the 2-year mark. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, my hair is no longer growing. No, if there is hair on your head, it is growing. Hair has different stages of growth. You've got your anagen, which is your growth phase, and 85% of your hair on your head, unless you have a medical issue, 85% of the hair on your head is growing right now. That's why some people say, oh, when I leave my hair alone, it grows. No, it always grows. It's just that when you leave it alone and you're not messing with it too much, you're actually able to see the length that you've retained.
Yes.
You're still growing that hair. And so it is now a question of if you think about your hair that way, it will change the way you see it. You will stop using fabrics that are harsh. A lot of hijabis tie very tight underscars, cutting off circulation at their head, causing high levels of frictions on their edges, and your edges are the weakest part of your hair. the weakest. And so that's one thing I'm going to tell my hijabi sisters to stop doing. Where you wear a silk cap to bed, but then you're wearing cotton undercap 10 hours of the day. On average, from the survey, most women wore their hijabs for 6 to 10 hours every day. So how does that correlate? You're wearing satin to bed, and then you're wearing cotton undercap all day, or jersey right on top of it. High friction. Just think long term, that's not going to work. Tight buns constantly, you're going to start losing your edges. Get over them. Your hijab can actually be a tool to help retain your hair, because it can protect your hair from UV. And there was a study that used porosity of the hair to show that UV radiation from the sun actually damages the hair. And so your hijab actually protects you from that. And then also your hijab could protect you from the elements in the weather. It could be a protective style if you use the right material and you are not stressing out your edges. Your hijab can actually help you retain a lot more length. Any tar who has grown her hair to waist length relax, cut it, grew it to waist length texlax, cut it, and now has grown it to waist length natural. She's worked with a lot of Muslim women, and she said all her Muslim clients, she noticed that the state of their edges was, the ends of their hair was impeccable. For a lot of women, the ends of their hair would deteriorate, but for with a Muslim client, it wasn't deteriorating as fast. And so she then decided to start covering her hair. She's not Muslim, but she decided to cover her hair just to test it out and see if it would work. And at that time, she was natural and she was struggling a little bit more with growing it to waist length. And she was like, doing that helped her grow her hair to waist length.
Can you share one of your own practical solutions?
Right. So, because Ghusl like I'm still delving into it. But okay, Ghusl. I used to think, oh my God, water's going to be the reason that my hair gets lost. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a married woman now. My Ghusl frequency is higher, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a problem. We're all afraid of water. It's not part of our culture. But really, I've realized I'm not losing it. I'm gaining. I'm still retaining a whole lot of length. So a Ghusl one would be, after Ghusl, assess your hair. I'm giving this to you guys for free because this is what I usually do in my sessions. But because I love Ghania, you guys are getting this info for free, okay? So after Ghusl, 3 handfuls of water is all you need. Don't go overboard. I heard some sisters thinking that they have to shampoo their hair. No, you do not have to shampoo your hair for Ghusl. 3 double handfuls of water on your scalp. It's just your scalp that needs to be wet, not your entire hair. So when you come out the shower, pat dry it with a towel. I say pat, not rub, because remember, think about that friction. Think about retaining the length of that hair from 3 to 5 years if length is what you want, right? So pat dry it with a towel, do not rub with a towel. And after that, wait till your hair dries a little bit, like 80%, and assess your hair. This is going to be the key in everything. Assess how your hair feels. If I moisturize my hair right before Ghusl, because for some people, you don't know when you're going to do Ghusl, unless you are just an unmarried woman and the only time you do Ghusl is after your period, then I would just say mix. This is a big tip. If you're not a married sister, mix your Ghusl with your wash day. Use Ghusl to rinse out your conditioner. Simple, right? That's one adjustment you can make. If you're a married sister, then assessing your hair becomes a necessity. So after you've done that process of pat drying, if your hair feels dry, moisturize it. Very simple. If you just moisturize your hair before Ghusl and you did a really good moisturizing treatment and your hair doesn't need any more, then you're fine. So it's sometimes it sounds so complicated, but it isn't. It's just we have to change our mindset and change our practices. So I always assess my hair pre-Ghusl and post-Ghusl. So pre-Ghusl, I think, when was the last time I washed my hair? Right, I haven't washed my hair in a week. This Ghusl run, we're going to do washing. We're going to do a shampoo. Or let's say I have washed my hair and my hair is not that dirty, but maybe it's been 3 days. I'll do Ghusl, maybe I'll add a little bit of shampoo to it. Or my hair is very, very, very dry. I haven't put a moisturizer on in a while. Then what I might do is add a little bit of conditioner to the ends of my hair and use Ghusl to rinse it. So I embed my hair care practices within my faith practices. So there's so much more I could talk about, but it's literally just looking for those. It's hard to see them when we're embroiled in our old cultural practices. You have to think of the solution first, understand the structure of your hair, and then it's easier to be able to do those tweaks.
Yes. So basically, we need to start being more deliberate about what exactly we're trying to achieve with our hair.
Yeah. And sensible. Yes. The best product to use is common sense.
Ooh,
that's what I like.
Please.
Use common. That's the secret. This product called Common Sense. Apply it every day.
Thank you. I think people need to hear that more often. Oh my goodness. So Rahma, we're about to round up. And I wanted to ask you two more questions. The first one, in one statement, can you let us know what's one hair tip that changed your life?
I'd say a statement that actually changed the way I look at hair. My hair coach mentioning that it was what she said about what we see. I can't remember in exact words, but I'm paraphrasing here. And she talked about, as a mother, you cannot instill in your child. It's very hard, not you cannot, but it's very hard to instill in your child what you yourself aren't doing. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize a lot of us have dreams and hopes when it comes to hair care, but we're not actually doing the work to take us there. Everybody wants their solution in a bottle. And Titi liked to say it's not very sexy to tell people that they need to take care of their health so their hair can grow. Mm. We are all about dreams and hopes and not the work it takes to get there. And it's just hair, but it's not just hair. Mm. There's so much that we've attached to it. And so we have to be active. If we want something, we have to be active in going out there to get it. It's not going to be easy for our generation. It is something I'm very aware of. And because I'm aware of it, I'm not shocked by any time I'm faced with a challenge. It's not going to be easy for our generation because we don't have the foundation for that. So we're going to have to create the foundation ourselves.
Rahma, thank you so much for that advice. And I also wanted to just end with this question. If you could give every naturalista one piece of advice, what would it be?
Wash your scalp and be gentle with your hair.
Please, before I end the show, where can we find you? Where can we get some of this helpful, insightful hair tips that people really need, and guidance? Where can they find you?
Two places you can find me: on Instagram at _Hijabi. That is my main page. Just drop me a DM if you have any questions. Or if you would like to come into any of our virtual in-person events, if you have an ISOC in your university, or MSA, I think they call it in America, Muslim Society or organization at your university, and you would like to invite us to run an event, Curls, Coils and Sisters is the page to go to. So Curls, Coils and Sisters. And if you can't find it, just message me on Hijabi. I'm looking forward to chatting to all of you. I always enjoy questions because it encourages me to think and to find solutions to problems that haven't been discovered yet. And I'm in that mode of I love the discovery phase of it all.
Rahma, thank you so much, man. You've been generous with us today with so much insight and tips for hair care, not just for people wearing the hijab, but also women that don't necessarily wear the hijab. Thank you so much for sharing all you have today with us. We deeply appreciate your time and all you had to share. And I wish you the best with your educational journey as you educate more hijabis and non-hijabis, right? Essentially helping women to take better care of their hair. If you're listening and found this episode helpful as usual, send it to your friends. Till next time.
Assalamu alaikum.